Welcome to the Report, where we watch and talk about every episode of the Colbert Report from 2005 to 2014. That's a lot of episodes. I'm Alex,
And I'm Nathaniel.
and Colbert's guest is Lou Dobbs. So in the beginning, he talks about how hurricanes are hurting the great drinking cities of New Orleans and Key West. Hurricane Wilma was ongoing at the time,
Is
despite the talk of what do you
is
say?
Key West as big a drinking city as New Orleans?
I mean, probably not, but
Like, I
just thought it
can't
was funny.
imagine many cities really compete.
Yeah, it talked about Lou Dobbs. Says Lou Dobbs tonight is tonight.
Mm.
The next part is about
Oh,
the
that's funny.
Okay, so that actually talks about is the pundocracy of pun. I looked up, and it seems like pundocracy is probably more popular, but some people have said pundocracy, seemingly unrelated to Colbert. So it's kind of awkward.
Punditocracy is awkward too. It's
Yeah,
not. It's
that's
not one of the
true.
words that fits into an ocracy. Well,
Yeah, so he starts making a lot of like I guess kind of suggestive hand motions, talking about the impact of Hurricane Wilma,
yeah,
and then he says he's competing against the Sunday talk shows for guests, and so yeah, that's all of our Schieffer is on CBS, Russert is on NBC, and Stephanopoulos is on ABC for
yep.
Sunday news.
So there's the
Or
lineup at the
just the
time.
thing is, maybe it's just because he's parodying a news person, but it does feel like all these news people just cared more about back then than today. Like,
Yeah, I can't
yeah,
name anybody outside of
yeah.
the controversial
I only said
figures.
people probably do actually watch the network news a bit more than cable news, just because more people watch network TV. I guess especially the older ones. So
Yeah.
and yeah.
Would would people actually? How many people? What's the comparison between people who'd get their first source of information would be the news in like 2005 versus today,
You mean like what kind of news? Like,
like from the television, like
I
actually,
think it's definitely gotten less.
like the first time you'd hear about something would be on the
Yeah.
TV.
I think maybe TV was. I think if I remember, I think TV might have been starting to catch up to newspapers. The internet kind of took over instead. But
Hmm.
and
So was TV not ever really like
I think it
topped
might have
then?
been actually because I know like a lot of newspapers wound up first getting hurt by TV. So
Hmm.
especially the more like sensationalist ones.
And how long did that take? Was that the 90s when that started to happen?
Even like in the '60s, it was happening.
Okay, but
Yeah. And so Col- and so Colbert is bad at they're taking up all the interview guests, so he has a talk with K. Bailey Hutchinson, a senator from Texas, over using the interview clips that she recorded for the other shows.
uh, not actually her.
It was her, just
Well,
wasn't
not
for that show.
not like she didn't actually interview for Colbert.
Yeah, I know you wanted to check the original interview, but I haven't tried it
We haven't
yet.
been able to find that.
Yeah, I haven't tried. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
it might actually be there. And so it seems like he was saying that he wants, I assume, the people investigated in the Plame investigation to be indicted on crime, not on a crime, and not perjury. Even though,
Perjury is a
yeah, I
crime.
assume they did all these. Like, watch them more for just lying about a crime than.
Yeah, but I
And
mean, it's still a crime.
yeah, so Colbert saying it's not a crime. Manslaughter shouldn't count as murder. He
And
says.
whose indictment is this? Because it comes up throughout the episode.
It's multiple people, I think, but it was investigating the Valerie Plame
Hmm.
thing, and like, so I imagine this would have been like Scooter Obi. It seems like Karl Rove was investigated, although I don't think he was ever indicted. But
So should we like talk about what this is?
yeah, I did look it up more today. So yeah, the thing was, it said like Valerie Plame's husband said that he didn't think that Bush was being honest about where Iraq was getting their uranium from, or if they were getting
Okay.
uranium from Niger. And so then there was another article talking about how his wife worked for the CIA too, which I thought was kind of like he wasn't allowed to like say that. So
Okay.
they wanted investigating to see if they like blew somebody's like cover without.
That without.
Yeah, and yeah, Peter Fitzgerald was the special prosecutor.
Okay.
That was kind of funny, I guess, because like it seems like a lot of times what happens is that the deputy attorney general winds up appointing the special prosecutor because the attorney general was deemed to be like too important and too close to the president.
Hmm.
And at this time, it was James Comey. It was kind of funny because it wound up being the special prosecutor investigation into him getting fired from the FBI later. So
Comes around, right?
I guess yeah.
S- Um. So how did this investigation like affect Bush's administration?
I mean, it seemed like Scooter Libby did get convicted for it, but like his sentence was commuted and Trump would pardon him later. So
Okay.
yeah,
But so would this like hurt the Bush administration
it
in the
probably
midterms?
did, but there's
Okay.
probably a lot of other things too.
Yeah.
And uh, and so then he has an interview with a person from Hurricane Wilbur, who says like I just don't see a lot of heavy rain right now. I don't know if that was a joke or if he was just saying it was more wind than rain, but
Yeah, or he
yeah.
couldn't see it because he
And then
was
he
like
gets hit
blinded
by
by
the
the rain.
sign.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is very funny. I think it's a
yeah.
continuing clip. And then he during that interview heads back to the senator.
Oh yeah.
So it's as if
Oh,
he
that's
was
why they're uninterrupted. That's why they're
yeah, as if he were juggling both of them, which
yeah.
is funny. But
Yeah, I don't think even the mainstream news networks would cut back between different interviews, unless it
yeah,
was like an emergency.
or if you're conducting like a multiple person interview, like
Yeah,
a like two sides of the
yeah. And so then we get to the word, which was pussy in this episode. I'm not sure if I'm going to say that again, which I probably don't have to because the word was really short. He just called Bush a coward for like wanting to pull Harriet Meyer's nomination, but just
mm.
asking about it is like, if we were to pull the nomination, how do you think we should do it?
So how does the process of pulling a nomination go?
I mean, the president just says, I'm no longer nominating this person, I'm pretty
And
sure.
then just
And they
like
can
stuck in
also,
dead
the
water?
person can also withdraw the nomination themselves.
Okay.
And
So if you're nominated for the Supreme Court, do you lose your previous job?
no, I don't think you have to
Okay.
immediately. I mean, that doesn't usually happen with these things.
Has how many times has a person been like had the nomination withdrawn?
I think multiple times. I mean, most recent, but I mean, of course, it does happen for like the cabinet fairly
Yeah.
often.
And what's the most likely reason for a president to do it?
Especially if they don't think they can get the votes.
Okay. So rather than so it's a political
Of course,
decision.
I think like the last cabinet nomination that actually went to a vote and lost was John Tower for Secretary of Defense under George H.W. Bush.
Hmm.
And I think he might have appointed Dick Cheney instead. But like, of course, there's also like with Merrick Garland where the nomination didn't go to a vote, but Obama also never withdrew it. So
So it just never happened.
yeah, and so I looked up how the Harriet Myers thing went down, and so what happened was that John Roberts was originally nominated to replace O'Connor, and then when Rehnquist died, Bush decided he would rather have Roberts replacing as Chief Justice, and so then he decided to nominate Harriet Myers to replace O'Connor,
Hmm.
and then I guess that wound up being withdrawn eventually.
So who eventually took?
I mean, that was Alito.
So Alito eventually got the seat.
Yeah,
Why did Alito get the seat rather than Myers?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure why he picked Alito. Maybe he thought. I mean, I'm sure they'll talk about it later. I'm guessing he maybe wanted to pick like somebody that was more qualified, but was still conservative enough that people wouldn't have problem
Okay.
voting for.
And what happened to Myers after the
I'm not. I'll
this?
look up what actually happened to her because I had it actually looked that
Okay,
part
so
up.
what's next in the episode while we're
Oh
looking
yeah,
that
also
up?
says. Oh yeah, I forgot. Like in the word, like his whole thing is about comparing Harriet Miers' thing to Iraq. It's saying
Okay.
like I didn't know that these volatile religious factions would get involved, and WMD stood for Would Myers do?
Yeah.
It recurs to McCain as a homegrown insurgency. It says like just like Iraq, it's a spastic success. It says here she just like went into private practice afterwards. So
Okay.
okay. So then there's the Lou Dobbs interview, and Lou Dobbs was indeed on CNN at the time. He was hosting Lou Dobbs Tonight, which later moved to Fox Business.
Yeah.
But of course, the thing I guess I laughed for was like it seems surprising how it seems like Lou Dobbs did track pretty well what Donald Trump would believe. Like
Yeah.
Lou Dobbs was even the first like person to talk about the Barack Obama birthplace conspiracy theory type thing. So I
Yeah.
kind of wouldn't be surprised if Trump just watched Lou Dobbs a lot, or that's kind of what inspired a lot of his things. Because I mean, the
Yeah.
main things is that he's concerned about trade and immigration, which would of course be the things that Trump would wind up
Big
running
Trump
on.
issues.
Yeah,
Of course, like not outsourcing jobs is his big
yeah,
thing, and
yeah.
non-illegal
Yeah, and he talks
aliens.
about Lou Dobbs getting the Peabody for the stock market crash in 1987. That was the Black Monday, which is when the indexes dropped like a whole bunch in one day. Although I don't think it
Hmm.
lasted that long.
Hmm. How does one go about covering a stock market crash? You just interview the traders?
Probably,
But like, I feel like oftentimes in a crash, they imagine the traders would be too busy to
yeah.
want to do that.
And so yeah, Dobbs was talking about challenging orthodoxy, which it certainly was. I mean, there was although like I feel like the thing is like, while it is true that like none of the Republican presidents had really been that anti-immigration because they all understood like the benefits of it. Like it's not like the conservative press I think was that pro-immigrant. Like
Although anti-immigration is kind of one of the like tenets that the Republican Party's kept since its inception,
sort
almost.
of. I'm not sure. I mean, like I mean, it depends on the type of immigrants. Like they were fine with some immigrants. Like
I
and
mean, I would say more that the Democratic Party's even before
yeah,
the party shift was
yeah,
pro-immigration.
yeah, or at least try to get immigrants votes. Like
Yeah,
I mean, I know Thomas Nast didn't like the Irish immigrants, but he thought the Chinese immigrants would be better than them. So
yeah.
and of course like Um, And of course, he makes the same argument about we spend too much on Iraq and not on the border that like Trump would make too. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 29
Um.
years of trade deficits. But of course, Colbert says if we outsource all the jobs, illegals wouldn't come here, which is probably true, I think.
Yeah.
Although I feel like a lot of the jobs that illegals would take would not be easy to outsource, like performing like household labor would probably not be
Yeah.
something
You
that you
can't
can
really
outsource
outsource that
unless you make all robots.
unless we get to the far,
Yeah.
far
Of
future.
course, Lou
But.
Dobbs just says that you shouldn't call illegal aliens immigrants.
Hmm.
Just like I said, it's like when I was looking, these, um, of these,
Of
well,
course, throughout all this, Colbert does his typical
yeah, he says
messing with like Luke
he says like,
Dobbs.
where are all the charming immigrants? I mean, I saw those pictures of Ellis Island. They're black and white. They're very classy. Lou
Yeah.
Dobbs says it seems like they've disavowed the Ellis Island thing for going. He says, well, Colbert says, well, the Rio Grande must have been really refreshing. So
Yeah. This is typical Colbert jokes. Really,
yeah,
it's funny.
and
It's
so
good.
yeah, and so Lou Dobbs brought up the thing of there being more illegal immigrants to legal immigrants, and I assume he means like more of them coming over. Like, try
Hmm.
to. I saw like it seemed like even I couldn't quite tell, but it seemed like even like an anti-immigration place said that it was only nearly half of the immigrants were illegal from 2000 to 2005. Illegal,
So,
and I mean that would be a biased source anyway, so maybe it's less. I'm not sure.
so not necessarily a true fact.
Yeah, and of course you said your thing is like I feel like there must have been a time in our history before because I don't think the Pilgrims had papers to come over here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, they did have a charter.
I mean they did have a charter. I mean to be fair, the charter didn't even apply to the precise place, but
Yeah.
technically I think like the Virginia Company or whatever covered like so much of the land that
So technically they had papers, but I mean,
yeah.
they didn't go through any Ellis Island. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
and this is like maybe if we made America a third world country, we could keep jobs here. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would be true or not. I guess like if we like cut like people's wages a lot, so that people be as poor as people in third world countries, I mean maybe, but
Yeah, because then everybody would want to come to America.
yeah, I mean nobody
Of
would
course,
want
that
to
would
come to
solve
America.
that would solve the illegal alien problem.
Yeah, and you said the thing is like you thought Lou Dobbs was doing the right thing, was just going along with the jokes.
Yeah, he basically just as soon as Colbert makes a joke, he doesn't fight it.
Yeah,
He just says, "Oh, you got me."
and he said nailed again,
Yeah.
and then Colbert asks the last sentence in Spanish.
Okay, which is funny. Which
I
is also
didn't write down what it was. I did
it's something. It was something like
about
immigrants
immigration
coming
being
here.
stronger. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next thing is, for some reason, they didn't just have this tacked on before. It was like a separate video. The Colbert site was like the like pre-show bit was this time. It wasn't Colbert trivia. It was the Fract or the Freedom Fact.
Mm,
It was about. Did you know the Wright brothers were American? I guess it's
yeah.
kind of I don't
Which
know.
actually does bring up, for me at least, the story with the Brazilians.
With Alberto Santos Dumont, and they had think that he needs more credit.
Yeah, but when is that? Have Brazilians always thought that?
I'm not sure if they always did, but
Like, does Brazilian schooling teach that? Like, he was the first
they
person
probably say something like that. But
to make the airport plane. I know Brazilians nowadays get contentious about it. Um,
yeah,
of course, the fract could also be about fracking, but I don't think it is. It's not. But
yeah,
there's something funny about like F and R systems put together.
yeah,
Maybe it's just fricatives and the R.
yeah. And the next segment is called "Bring Him Back or Leave Him Dead" because Colbert says that medical technology is getting to the point where resurrection will be possible.
It's not
I guess.
good.
Yeah. And then he
Um,
says the people will owe us for bringing them back unless they were slaves.
yeah. In which case,
Though he
he's
says like they won't be our slaves like unless they were slaves or something. I
yeah. He
forget
says
the
that
exact word.
they won't be our slaves, of course, unless they were slaves, which is the quote from the episode.
Yeah.
Um,
And so the first person he wants to bring back is Tomasta Torquemada, the Inquisitor,
mhm.
because so that he can
The
make the
investigation
investigations go faster by torturing people.
poking out their
I mean,
eye.
assume they'd probably already heard some things about torture at Guantanamo by now, so maybe that was kind of not.
Yeah.
So that it's feel kind of odd that like they.
How bad was the torture really? Um, during the Spanish Inquisition.
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think it was like as bad as a lot of the people say. Like, putting a lot of the English sources would have been biased against the Spanish and
Yeah.
Catholicism, but
Well, obviously, but was
yeah.
it in any way
I mean,
true?
I assume there was a lot of torture, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was that much worse than what prisoners were expected to go through back then, though.
Yeah. Well, also, the Spanish Inquisition lasted a long time. It wasn't just
Yeah,
one guy.
well, like the really active period.
Yeah.
And so he says like Tom DeLay would get tortured. He was on trial for improper use of campaign funds. He was the House Majority Leader, which is now the Speaker of the House, to be clear,
Okay. And
from
where is he
Texas.
from?
He's from
What
Texas.
district?
I think like probably like somewhere a little bit south of Houston. Although the district's probably
Okay.
moved around quite a
Like a
bit.
suburban district around
I'll
there.
check or
Was he convicted? Or,
he was convicted. He did get out of prison. He is out of prison by now, though.
but like who is the majority leader after him?
It says Roy Blunt was acting majority leader,
Hmm.
and
Then who was he
and
elected
after that
again?
was John Boehner, who wound up becoming Speaker of the House when they
Okay.
took the House again.
Is minority leader Boehner?
Yeah, well, he's majority. I don't know.
Okay.
I said it's kind of weird. Like, I know the Senate only has majority leader because there isn't really a position for head of the Senate. I mean, there's
Besides vice
president.
president,
I mean, there's president of the Senate and President pro tempore, who was just like a senator that served for a long time but doesn't actually have. Okay,
isn't the president pro tempore usually the majority leader too?
no,
Often, not
no,
usually.
I don't think it's so. I mean, maybe it has been once,
Wasn't
but
Mitch McConnell the president pro tempore
no,
when he
he's
was?
not. I mean, he could be, I guess, if Chuck Grassley doesn't run again, but
Okay.
that wouldn't be for a while. And Mitch McConnell might not run again either. So
How long has Chuck Grassley been in Iowa?
he's, I think, been since like 1980, 1989, 1982 or something, but he was first elected in like 1958, I think.
Hmm. So
I mean, first elected to like any kind of elected
yeah,
office. Like,
have any senators ever gone from the Senate to the House?
maybe. I'm not sure.
Because I
It's
can't imagine.
probably happened like in the early days.
I mean, obviously we've gone from president to the House, but never.
I mean, in states with one at large district, I can imagine it happening. But
Yeah,
okay, so yeah, he's been in the Senate since
Chuck
1981, so he
Grassley.
was elected in 1980.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, and so then he's talking about bringing back Darwin because evolution was still a fairly relevant debate at the time.
So yeah, because Colbert wanted to bring it
Yeah,
back to tell him he was wrong
it
about
is
it.
kind of funny. Like, I do get why they care about evolution, but it is kind of funny that they seems like a lot of this. I feel like a lot of the cultural rhetoric is just as much trying to convince people it is a big deal as saying it is a big deal.
Yeah,
Like, said evolution undermines our moral fiber, which seems kind of weird to say, but it was, I think, a big part of the rhetoric. Like, I know, like the Creation Museum has a whole section on like what believing in evolution will lead to.
hmm.
Yeah,
Also, Colbert uh, does decide to use the Spanish Inquisition to torture Darwin into saying
yeah,
evolution
by
is
setting his
wrong.
beard on fire,
Yeah,
and so then he has the audience chant on "Bring him back" or "Give him, leave him dead." He says, "Bring him back."
which is unfortunate because the audience does have a teleprompter and they're not just acting spontaneously.
I mean, yeah, like it would be weird if they did just.
Well, I think it would be nice.
I mean, I guess he could get them, but they'd probably just all scream out different things because he wouldn't realize it.
Yeah,
And then he just talks about eating a Wendy's bacon cheeseburger. And he
yeah,
says we should bring back Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's. But they want to leave him dead. But then Colbert reminds him that he made the Frosty, so they say bring him back.
yeah. Actually, so they, oh, okay,
Okay, bring him
him back.
back. Yeah.
Um, which is fun. What would happen if somebody like saw the teleprompter and didn't agree with it? Like, would they get
Um,
the security to kick them out?
no,
Then what would
I don't think
happen?
so. I
Would they
think it
just
would.
be?
I don't know. Maybe they would give it. I don't know. Maybe if I'm not
Because
sure
like,
what
what
would
if
happen.
everybody in the audience collectively agreed to ignore the teleprompter? Because
That'd
they
be
could do that.
interesting. Yeah.
It could happen.
And then he talks about mugshot photos, and then he goes over Tom DeLay's mugshot photo, and it shows him smiling. And so Colbert has his like various like funny mugshot photos. The
Romantically
Yeah, the
themed.
first one is just him smiling really big and giving a
Yeah.
thumbs up. The next one he says you're allowed to bring props, so he brings a cake, and that
Are
was
you
for
are
what?
you actually allowed to bring
I
props to a
don't think
mugshot?
so. And so that one was for his public urination, or as his just because it said Stephen in the snow doesn't mean that it was me.
Yeah, it could
And
be
so his
anything.
next one is a mugshot with a rose, a romantic mugshot for his libel case brought against Bette Midler.
Mm.
I don't think he would get a mugshot for a civil case, but
It's fine.
yeah,
Has Colbert ever actually been arrested?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Not even for like drunk driving or something.
Maybe I did try to look up like which presidents other than Trump or like which presidents have been arrested before they were president, and the only one I knew about was George W. Bush's drunk driving arrest. But I think there might have been others, but I couldn't find
It's
them.
probably happened to a lot of them.
Maybe, yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of one that isn't a bad innuendo,
Okay, sorry.
but whatever.
Okay,
I mean, Reagan probably was arrested for
I don't know.
something.
And
Yeah, he seems
so the
like it.
people we named should be watching out for their mugshots were Karl Rove, Bill Frist, Jack Abramoff, and Scooter Libby. Jack
Mm,
Abramoff was like the lobbyist who was arrested for giving like improper gifts to Congress.
mm.
To
What are improper gifts?
I forget, I think it was like trips and stuff like that. They
Oh,
did like crack down on it more after
I was
that.
thinking more like horse heads or something.
I mean, Bill Frist, I was confused. I know he was like the Senate Majority Leader at this time. He was from
Mm,
Tennessee, and I didn't know he was in trouble for anything. But it seems like although he doesn't seem to have faced any actual like indictment for it, it seems like he was being investigated for like selling his stocks at the time,
mm.
and which I mean is still something that gets talked about a lot of
Yeah.
Congress. So I mean, they might want to make it illegal, but Congress is the one that would have to do that, so it might be
I
hard.
feel like if you're a congressperson, like it's a pretty easy way to get arrested. So I feel like just don't sell your stocks until after.
No, I mean, like the thing is, like I assume they're all to do it somewhat. I imagine they're just
Yeah.
wondering if it was some kind of insider
Well,
thing.
it's the insider because they get the report right before
Yeah,
anybody else. So just wait for it to go public
I guess. Yeah,
because that you can't get caught
but
that
then
way.
if it goes public, then the prices will already changed.
Well, yeah,
That's the whole point of insider
but I
trading.
mean, like, if you're gonna get caught, it's not a smart idea.
I don't know. I mean, like I'm not. Most of it isn't illegal, so
Most of it.
yeah. And so I guess that's the end of that. I mean,
See the end of the episode?
honestly, this episode wasn't as interesting, even though it's still
No,
pretty funny.
it was the first part of the new week. They're probably I don't know,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I think the
hungover
next,
or
I said, I
something.
think the next one is our first guest that's not like a media person, so that'll be more.
Who is it?
I think it was one of this was one of the Sex and the City writers. I think.
Mm,
So yes, signing off on this episode of the Report Report.
signing off.